Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something really fundamental, something that affects every single one of us, the power of your mind. We've been digging into a really, thought-provoking discussion that explores whether and maybe more importantly, how we can actually guide our thoughts for personal growth.
Yeah.
So look, if you've ever felt like your inner monologue is just running the show, maybe filled with worries or stuck in those endless loops, well, this deep dive is definitely for you.
Absolutely.
Consider this your kind of direct route to understand how to take charge of your internal world.
Right. And it's important to clarify, when we talk about controlling our thoughts, we don't mean like stopping them dead. That's probably impossible, isn't it?
Yeah, seems unlikely.
Instead, it's really about developing the ability to manage our relationship with those thoughts.
Yeah.
Choosing how we engage with them. The material we've been looking at, it really underscores that this isn't some abstract pie-in-the-sky idea. It's presented as a learnable skill, something that can significantly impact your well-being.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. The conversation we explored kicks off with a pretty powerful statement. Your mind is your most potent tool.
Potent.
It's positioned as the engine behind your potential, your dreams, ambitions.
Yeah.
And ultimately achieving a truly fulfilling life.
Right.
However, and this feels like the big but, if it's left unchecked, those exact same thoughts can become a source of stress, negativity, and that really familiar feeling of self-doubt.
That's such a crucial distinction. It's kind of like having this incredibly advanced computer. Our source actually touches on that later, but maybe without a clear operating system.
Or one that's running really inefficiently.
Exactly. All that power is either just sitting there, wasted, or maybe worse, it's actively working against you.
Right.
And the discussion really emphasizes that this lack of direction, it isn't just a minor annoyance. It actively hinders our happiness, our ability to get stuff done, the things that matter to us.
Now, okay, one of the first things I think many of us think, I know I certainly have, is that trying to control your mind feels impossible.
Yeah.
Like trying to herd cats. Right?
Totally.
Okay.
And the source addresses this directly, which I found really encouraging, actually.
How does it frame it?
Well, what's fascinating is the comparison it makes. It compares it to training a muscle.
Oh, okay.
And that immediately makes the whole idea feel more relatable, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
You wouldn't walk into a gym for the very first time and expect to lift the absolute heaviest weight there.
No way.
It takes consistent effort,
Right.
regular practice, and yes, patience. Lots of patience sometimes.
Right.
Similarly, developing more influence over your thoughts, it's not about some instant fix. It's framed as a gradual process, building up that mental strength over time.
And it's so true when you think about it. I mean, the sheer volume of thoughts that just flip through our minds every single day, it's kind of astounding. The discussion mentions thousands. And let's be honest, a big chunk of those aren't particularly helpful, are they?
Not always, no.
They can be negative or just distracting or sometimes just completely overwhelming.
Precisely. That constant internal chatter, you can feel relentless, and it's so easy to feel like you're just, at its mercy.
Yeah.
But a really key insight here is that while these thoughts might pop up automatically, our engagement with them, how we react, that is something we can develop more control over.
Okay, that distinction feels important. It connects really nicely to another image in the source that properly stuck with me. The mind is a garden. Could you sort of paint that picture for us?
Sure. So picture your mind like this plot of really rich, fertile soil, just full of potential for amazing growth, vibrant plants.
Okay.
But just like any garden, right? If you neglect it, if you don't tend to it.
Weeds take over.
Exactly. It can get overrun with weeds, and in this case, the weeds are those negative or unhelpful thoughts.
Gotcha.
The discussion we looked at really emphasizes that you are the gardener. You have the ability, the power to choose which thoughts you want to nurture, give them your attention, water them, and which ones you actively work to, pull out, remove.
I really like that. It shifts the perspective, doesn't it? From feeling like a victim of your thoughts to being this active participant in shaping your own inner world. But then that familiar feeling often creeps back in. I just can't control my thoughts. It feels so automatic sometimes.
Right. That feeling is real.
The source tackles this very practically, though. It gives a really tangible example.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think. We move from the concept to, how does this actually play out day to day?
Right.
The discussion highlights that gaining control isn't about somehow stopping thoughts from appearing at all. That's probably not realistic, as we said. Instead, it's about becoming aware of those negative thoughts when they do surface, and then consciously deciding how you're going to respond to them.
Exactly. They offer this scenario, right? Starting a new project, maybe something important or intimidating,
Yeah.
and that little voice pops up, what if I fail? Classic.
Oh, yeah. Universal, probably. So, according to the source, what are the two different paths you can take right then?
Path one is the one, well, many of us take too often, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
You let that thought take root. You let it fuel the anxiety. Maybe it even stops you from starting the project altogether. Paralysis by analysis kind of thing.
Yeah, been there.
But the second path, the one the source encourages,
Yeah.
what's that?
It's about pausing, just taking a beat, acknowledging the thought, almost like nodding to it. Okay, I hear you.
Like validating it almost?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Recognizing it perhaps as just a worry, maybe thanking it for its concern, strangely enough, and then consciously choosing to let it pass, not giving it all the power.
It's like creating a bit of breathing room, isn't it? Between the thought popping up and your immediate gut reaction.
Mm-hmm.
That feels incredibly empowering.
It really does.
Now, to really drive home why this matters so much, the discussion brings in some, well, pretty surprising statistics from the National Science Foundation, apparently.
Yeah, these numbers are, well, they make you sit up and pay attention.
What were they?
Okay, prepare yourself. According to this data, a staggering 80%, 80s of our thoughts tend to lean negative.
80, wow.
And, wait for it, around 95% of our total thoughts are repetitive, the same ones, day in, day out.
95% repetitive.
Yeah.
Good grief. Let that sink in for a moment. Does that resonate with your own internal experience?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow. 80% negative, almost all on repeat. That paints a stark picture, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's kind of, no wonder so many of us feel mentally overloaded sometimes or just stuck in certain patterns. So the really crucial insight here then is that just by becoming aware of this internal monologue, you've already taken the first massive step towards disrupting these patterns.
Exactly. Awareness is positioned as the absolute key to change.
Okay.
And that repetitive nature, it's so important to grasp. If we're constantly replaying negative scenarios in our heads or dwelling on past mistakes, these just become like well-worn pathways in the brain.
Like habits.
Habitual thought loops, exactly. And they just reinforce negative beliefs and anxieties. The source gives the example of, persistent worries about work or relationships, often stemming from the same underlying fears that just keep getting recycled over and over again.
So how do we even begin to step off this mental hamster wheel then? The discussion we've been exploring, it introduces a specific tool that can help.
Right. This brings us neatly to the power of meditation, and specifically mindfulness meditation.
Okay, meditation.
Now, I know for some people, the idea of meditation might conjure up images of like silent gurus on mountaintops or hours of stillness, which can feel quite daunting at first.
Yeah, totally. Can feel like a huge, unachievable challenge. I think a lot of people hear meditation and immediately think, nope, not for me. My mind's way too busy for that.
That's a very common reaction.
The source even addresses this skepticism, doesn't it? Basically asking, okay, but does this stuff actually work in the real world?
And the answer, which is backed by a pretty significant body of research, seems to be a resounding yes.
Really?
Yeah. The discussion highlights a big meta-analysis. That's where they combine results from lots of studies, of 47 different studies. It was published in a major medical journal, JAMA Internal Medicine, back in 2014.
Okay, so proper research.
Right. And what's really compelling is that this research demonstrated that meditation programs can genuinely improve symptoms of anxiety, depression, and even chronic pain for some people.
Wow.
So this isn't just, anecdotal feelings. There seems to be solid scientific backing for these benefits.
That's actually really reassuring to know. So it's not just some abstract feel-good practice.
Yeah.
There's concrete evidence showing it can have positive effects. The source also uses a really helpful way to visualize how our minds work sometimes, which brings us back to that analogy of the mind as a supercomputer. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I liked that one too. The idea is our minds are these incredibly powerful processing units, right? Capable of handling just vast amounts of information every single second.
For sure.
But just like any computer that's running way too many programs at once or has too many browser tabs open.
Feel guilty.
Yeah. It can get overloaded, it slows down, you get errors. And in our case, that translates to feelings of stress, overwhelm, negative thinking.
Makes sense.
Meditation, then, in this analogy, is like running essential maintenance on the computer. It's like closing down all those unnecessary background processes that are draining resources,
Okay.
giving the whole system a much-needed upgrade, allowing it to function more smoothly, more efficiently, like closing those background apps on your phone that just drain the battery.
That's a great way to put it. Freeing up mental resources.
Precisely.
Okay, this has all been incredibly insightful. And speaking of insights, the discussion we explored also took an interesting little detour, looking at specific vocabulary related to this whole topic, to sort of enrich our understanding.
Yeah, language matters.
Shall we explore some of those key words? The first one you mentioned earlier was daunting. That feeling when something seems really hard or scary.
Yes, daunting. That feeling of something being intimidating or difficult to face, especially at first.
Like what?
Well, the examples given were things like the first day at a new job that can feel pretty daunting, right? The unknown.
Oh, yeah.
Or moving to a completely new city, facing the challenge of finding your way around, meeting new people, building a new life. That initial hurdle can feel huge, really daunting.
Absolutely. Okay, then we have the word neglect. How does that tie into our minds?
Neglect. It just means to ignore something or overlook it, fail to give it proper attention. The discussion used the example of neglecting your physical health, which eventually leads to feeling unwell or tired, or perhaps overlooking small problems in a relationship that, if neglected, can grow into much bigger issues down the line.
Yeah, like not dealing with things.
Exactly. And I quite like the simple example, too, like cleaning a room but completely neglecting the dust under the bed, that little bit you miss.
Ah, yes.
And if we neglect our mental garden, well, those negative weeds can really take over, can't they?
They really can. Okay, those are great relatable examples.
Yeah.
Next word up was innovative. How does that connect to managing our thoughts?
Innovative. This describes something new, original, or creative, usually talking about ideas or solutions.
Like technology.
Often, yeah. Think of someone like Steve Jobs, who's always cited for his groundbreaking, innovative ideas at Apple. Or maybe a team at work developing a completely fresh, innovative approach to solve a problem that's been around for ages.
Right, thinking outside the box.
Exactly. And when it comes to our own minds, finding innovative ways to reframe those sticky negative thoughts, that can be really powerful. A new angle.
Bringing fresh perspectives, new solutions, even internally. Interesting. Okay, now our next word was a bit more energetic. Exhilarating.
Ah, yes.
Can managing our thoughts ever feel exhilarating? Seems like hard work.
Well, exhilarating captures that feeling of being really exciting, thrilling, full of energy.
Like bungee jumping or something?
Skydiving was the example given. Yeah,
Yeah.
that massive rush of adrenaline, the pure excitement.
Okay.
Or think of an amazing, exhilarating concert where the music and the crowd's energy just sweep you away.
Got it.
Now, while maybe wrestling with a difficult thought pattern doesn't feel exhilarating in that exact moment,
Probably not.
probably not. But the sense of freedom, the empowerment that can come from gaining greater control over your mind, that can certainly feel incredibly rewarding. Even energizing, maybe exhilarating in its own way in the long run.
That's a nice way to think about it. The outcome can be exhilarating. Okay, then we got a really important word, resilient. How does resilience play into mental well-being?
Resilient, yeah, super important. It speaks to that ability to bounce back, to recover relatively quickly from difficulties, setbacks, tough times.
Right, bouncing back.
The examples highlighted were things like someone finding a new job after unexpectedly losing one that shows personal resilience, or a whole community coming together to rebuild after, say, a natural disaster. That showcases their collective resilience. It's about strength when facing adversity.
Okay.
So developing mental resilience means being able to navigate those negative thoughts and difficult emotions without being completely knocked off course by them. Understanding what resilient means can even help you reframe setbacks internally, seeing them as chances to grow.
Absolutely crucial quality to cultivate, isn't it?
Definitely.
And the final word we looked at was cautious. How does being cautious relate to our thought patterns? Seems almost contradictory to being resilient sometimes.
Interesting point. Cautious means being careful, thinking things through, trying to avoid unnecessary risks.
Like looking both ways before crossing the street.
Exactly. That's the perfect, simple example they gave of being cautious, or someone doing really thorough research before making a big financial investment. That's a cautious approach.
Okay.
When it comes to our thoughts, then, being cautious means maybe not automatically believing every single negative thought that pops into your head.
Ah, I see. Not taking them at face value.
Precisely. It's about pausing, maybe evaluating the thought, is this actually true? Is it helpful? And then choosing whether or not to give it your full attention and energy, being cautiously selective about what you buy into mentally.
Got it. So some really valuable vocabulary there that shines a light on different aspects of understanding and guiding our internal landscape.
Yeah, add some nuance.
Right. Now, as we start to bring this deep dive towards a close, let's just quickly summarize some of those key takeaways for everyone listening.
Absolutely. So I think the big one is we've explored how gaining more influence over your mind isn't about magic, it's a skill. Something that can be developed with consistent effort, much like training that muscle we talked about,
Right. Practice is key.
and becoming aware of, and then actively working to reframe those negative thoughts that inevitably pop up. That's a vital step. You can't change what you don't notice.
So true.
Understanding the sheer volume and, importantly, the repetitive nature of our thoughts, especially the negative ones, really underscores why it's so important to actively engage with that inner dialogue.
Mm-hmm. It's running anyway. Might as well steer it.
Kind of. And finally, using tools like mindfulness meditation offers a scientifically supported way to start breaking free from those unhelpful negative cycles and fostering a more positive, more focused mental state.
Yeah.
Ultimately, as that garden analogy so beautifully illustrates, you really do possess the power to cultivate and nurture your own mental well-being. You're the gardener.
You're the gardener. I like ending on that. And on that note, here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider.
Okay.
Given what we heard, that a huge majority, maybe 80%, of our thoughts tend towards the negative, and 95% are often just reruns.
Yeah, those stark numbers.
What small conscious shift could you perhaps make today, just today, to interrupt even one of those negative thought loops? Just one. And following the garden idea, what new seed of thought, maybe something positive or constructive, could you intentionally try to plant in your mental garden today?
Powerful question.
That's a powerful question to reflect on, isn't it? And perhaps doing that, making that tiny shift, is the very first step on your path towards truly harnessing the incredible power of your own mind. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.